Let us talk about this fuel subsidy removal thing. Some things are still not clear. If they are clear to you, perhaps you can help me. But first question, do you know that there are two different types of subsidy regime? Two different types. So when we talk about the history of fuel subsidy in Nigeria, not all fuel subsidy are the same. There is the fuel subsidy regime before 2016, from 2003, 2006, thereabout to 2015. The fuel subsidy removal of 2012 was in a fuel subsidy regime called the Oil Processing Agreement, OPA, under Goodluck Jonathan. That fuel subsidy regime is different from the fuel subsidy regime under APC that started in 2016 till 2023. That was the DSDP fuel subsidy regime, the direct sale, direct purchase fuel subsidy regime. Two different regimes for the same fuel subsidy. So when we're talking about making payments for fuel subsidy, the first question that we should ask is, which fuel subsidy regime are you talking about? In the OPA fuel subsidy regime, payments were made. Yes, oil marketers received payments. That was the regime before 2016. So, if anybody comes to say that we were borrowing to pay for fuel subsidy and borrowing to pay the interest on fuel subsidy, that will be true, but it will only be true for the OPA fuel subsidy regime, the one that ended in 2015. It was in the OPA fuel subsidy regime that marketers were presenting invoices that were fake. They were presenting invoices without importing any product to receive payment for the fuel they did not import. That was the OPA fuel subsidy regime. When the former governor of, Gombe? Bagudu. No, not Bagudu. When one of those former governors came on Channels TV to say that he met somebody who was complaining that they were tired of eating fuel subsidy money, that was payments that they were being made in the OPA fuel subsidy regime. That is the regime that ended in 2015. In that OPA fuel subsidy regime, many of the marketers have been prosecuted. They have been investigated, they have been tried and found guilty in that OPA fuel subsidy regime. But if you look at the OPA fuel subsidy regime, the monies that they were claiming was in the few hundreds of billions. From that 2006 to 2015, few hundreds of billions. It's small. But some of them were prosecuted and some of those monies were recovered. But if anybody now comes and says that in the DSDP fuel subsidy regime that ended in 2023, that some people still believe continued even until 2025, if anybody comes to say that the government was borrowing money to pay for fuel subsidy or borrowing money to pay the interest on fuel subsidy, would that be true? The Group Chief Financial Officer of the NNPC was on national TV live, and he stated categorically that from 2016 to 2023, the NNPC did not pay anybody any dollar or any naira for fuel subsidy. They did not pay anybody. They did not make any payment to any organization, whether marketer, whether IOCs, whether local oil companies. NNPC did not make any payment to anybody, to any company as fuel subsidy payment. They did not. That was what the Group Chief Financial Officer of the NNPC Limited said. It's on public record. Now, what did they do? They did net-offs. They did net-offs. What is a net-off? NNPC is the sole custodian of Nigeria's crude oil on behalf of the Nigerian people through the Ministry of Finance Incorporated and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources Incorporated. That oil, the cost of producing it, whether through joint venture agreements, whether through production sharing contracts or residual production methods, that oil is shared on a percentage basis to cover for the cost of extraction. So the portion that belongs to Nigeria is held through the NNPC. And the NNPC was using a portion of their own to do DSDP, meaning the crude oil will be given to the refiners will refine and give back refined product. No cash was exchanged. And when NNPC got the refined petrol product, they had a choice to sell at a price that they determine or at a price that the federal government tells them to sell. So if the federal government tells them to sell at a price that they determine is below the market price, remember, they did not pay any cash to get the refined petrol product. They only gave the crude oil and got refined product. So any amount they sold really is a profit. But what they will now do is that they will compare the price that the federal government told NNPC to sell with the price on the international market, the benchmark, and they will now net off the difference. They will net it off. Nobody is paid anything. No money is borrowed to pay anything. So in the DSDP fuel subsidy regime that started in 2016 and ended in 2023, supposedly, would it be right to say that we were borrowing to pay fuel subsidy or borrowing to pay the interest on fuel subsidy? Would it be right? The answer is no. It will not be correct. So what is happening? What is all this talk about Tinubu removing fuel subsidy? No, Tinubu did not remove fuel subsidy. If we go by the statement of the Chief Financial Officer of the NNPC Limited about net-offs, what it simply means is that Tinubu came and said, let us increase the price of petrol product, Jare. Let's make more money from Nigerians, because 57% of NNPC revenue were coming from sale of refined petrol products. Many people, many Nigerians still do not know that it is not only Nigeria that NNPC sells crude and refined petrol products to. Even right now, NNPC has a trading company that sells refined petrol products, even exporting to other countries. So when people come and make the argument that, oh, smugglers, because our price is cheaper than our neighbors, and then smugglers are smuggling. They forget that NNPC has a software that tracks every tanker. So if any tanker is going to smuggle, NNPC will know. So if indeed there was any smuggling, it is either it is NNPC that is smuggling it, or NNPC is involved in a corruption regime that covers the smuggling. And in any case, think about it. If it is indeed smuggling, the price of our petrol was higher than the price of petrol in Libya, higher than the price of petrol in Algeria, higher than the price of petrol in Egypt, higher than the price of petrol in Angola. If it is smuggling and it's not corruption, why is it that the smugglers did not go to Algeria, go to Libya, go to Egypt to smuggle their cheap petrol into Nigeria? Because their petrol was cheaper. Why didn't they smuggle it into Niger? Why didn't they smuggle it into Benin Republic? If it is about the cheapness or the price of the refined petrol product. Don't forget, today in Niger Republic, petrol is selling cheaper than in Nigeria. And Niger not get crude oil. Interesting times. So NNPC did not pay anybody any money for fuel subsidy, did not pay any oil marketer since 2015 under the DSDP subsidy regime. They didn't. NNPC did not borrow any money to import refined petrol products since 2016 to 2025. They did not borrow any money to import. They did not borrow any money to pay interest on the net offs that they were doing. They didn't. They only operated the direct sale, direct purchase. They give away, it's trade by barter. You give away your crude oil, then they'll give you back refined petrol product in the same value. So there was no subsidy that was removed because they say, oh, we could no longer pay. We could no longer pay. From 2016 to 2025, show us the oil marketer, the international oil company that NNPC or Nigeria paid fuel subsidy money to. Show us. Under the DSDP arrangement, show us. Show us the money that was borrowed to pay for fuel subsidy since 2016 to 2025. Show us. The Project Gazelle forward sales agreement was not even about importing refined petrol products. It wasn't. That $3.3 billion of Project Gazelle was borrowed in the excuse to stabilize the dollar, the naira rather. So it was not about importing refined petrol products. Project Gazelle, Project Eagle, Project Leopard, all of those things, they were borrowed. Project Leopard, Eagle, was forward sales agreement that was used to pay for refinery rehabilitation, turnaround maintenance. So in all of the borrowings that were done, none of them were used to import petrol products. None. None. So is it right to say that, oh, we could not pay fuel subsidy? If it is true that you were paying fuel subsidy, who did you pay the fuel subsidy money to? Because the money now became trillions. Trillions that were being claimed as fuel subsidy. Claimed. It would just come. And what NNPC was doing was simple. We have paid 6 trillion for subsidy money. So FG, we cannot pay any money into the federation account. This is the amount that we can pay. We take. In fact, in 2022 or 2023, they paid zero naira. NNPC paid zero. So the only money that Nigeria had to spend was money that was coming from other sources of revenue. Other sources of revenue. The corruption in the NNPC, the corruption in the oil and gas is what is causing Nigerians to suffer today. And instead of a Tinubu or an APC to expose it, they are covering it and using it to siphon public funds into private pockets. In the process, They are punishing Nigerians. So when they come and say, oh, they remove fuel subsidy, that is the proof you need to know how wicked the APC is. They chose to punish you instead of punishing the corrupt politicians that siphoned your money. Project Gazelle, Project Eagle, where did the money go? 20 billion US dollars spent on turnaround maintenance of refineries. The refineries are still not working. Who collected the money? Imagine what that 20 billion dollars will do. How many trillion? That's over 300 trillion naira. Imagine what it will do in the Nigerian economy. But some people siphoned it. Show me, oh, show me. Show me. And I'll be convinced. I stand to be corrected. I'm not going to claim here that I have monopoly of knowledge on subsidy. No. Everything that I've said now, fact check me. And then show me in the DSDP fuel subsidy regime, which oil marketer was paid fuel subsidy. Those trillion that they are claiming, in fact, it went up to as much as 7 trillion in 2025. 6 trillion in 2023. Those 6 trillion naira, who was it paid to? I don't even need to wait for your answer. It was not paid to anybody because the NNPC themselves said so. It was net offs. So all that Tinubu needed to do was to expose the corruption in there. But no, what did he actually do when he said fuel subsidy gone? He actually just increased the price of petrol product. And then he added the devaluation of the naira. In fact, the devaluation of that naira is another topic for another day. We are being punished by Tinubu and the APC. They are not improving any economy. All of this will just be a rant, waste of time, if it does not move you to take action. The solution to a better country is to vote out the APC as a corrective measure, not because we hate them, as a corrective measure so that they can begin to implement policies that are people-based. Right now, the policies they are implementing are godfather-based. Politicians now feel like the only way they get into power or return back to office is when the godfather anoints them. So rather than do things that will make life better for the people, they are engaging in doing things that will please the godfather. Look at Fubara, look at Ned Nwoko, look at Desmond Elliott. The list continues. So if we're going to get a better Nigeria, then we must ensure that the elections of 2027, they are free and fair. And the only way to guarantee that for now is VoteWatch. There's a link to it in the description. Check it out. I'm sure you'll be convinced it is the only way to stop rigging in 2027 and truly return power to the people and truly give the people a leader that they deserve. VoteWatch. The link is in the description. Check it out and share your thoughts with us. Let us work together.